Greetings, Anonymous Party members, and greetings also to those of you who are considering joining the movement. For those of you watching me for the first time, my name is Nick Borden, and this video is part of a long series of videos in my campaign for the office of President of the United States. I'll be running in the 2016 election, but that's only part of what I'm doing. If you're unfamiliar with the whole of what I am doing, I would strongly recommend watching one of my introduction videos before watching this or any of the other ones. All the videos are available on the party website, www.anonymousparty.org. This is actually my second video in a second series, a little bit lighter on the policy, a little bit stronger on the commentary, I guess. This series is called What's on My Mind, where I only prepare a introduction and a bullet point outline. At least other than just thinking. I don't actually write a speech for these videos per se, but I actually have probably taken a little bit longer than I should have since my last video. I've been a little bit busy trying to get ready for winter. I've been trying to stock up a little bit on my firewood, make sure I have heat for the winter, and while I did say in my first video that I cut, split, and stack all my own firewood, I sort of may not, I don't want to say that I lied, because I didn't really lie, but it wasn't entirely the whole story, I guess. I have had to purchase firewood as well some years because I didn't have enough. I'm still kind of getting a feel for how much I need in a particular year, and especially going into this year, I didn't have enough time, especially doing all these videos, to cut enough myself, so I did have to purchase approximately half of what I'm going to be using this winter. So I didn't cut, split, and stack all of it. Stacked all of it, but I think I'm right about set for this winter finally, so hopefully it's not as bad as they say, but who knows. But anyways, for this video, I decided to make a video response to a post on the anonymousparty.org forums. The post reads as follows, submitted by Anonymous9001 on September 18th, 2014. It reads, "Hello, Mr. Borden. I have been watching your videos regarding your plan to run for president in the 2016 race. You are doing this in the name of Anonymous, or at least in the sense of our party, so I came to wonder about what you think about the laws that restrict hacking. The questions I have on mind are as follows. What do you believe hackers should be allowed or disallowed from doing? Do you agree with online piracy being an acceptable practice? Would you consider hacking a means of defending oneself from, say, the government if it is acting tyrannical? How far should hackers be allowed to go before the act would be considered questionable? And, if hacking goes too far, what should be the maximum punishment? I would like to thank you in advance if you choose to answer these questions either here on the board, but especially on a video, since I have to assume that many other Anons are wondering the same thing. I have full confidence in you, Nick. There seems to be little to nothing that I disagree with your plan, other than perhaps your personal beliefs. However, I can understand where you're coming from with them. Before I leave, I just want to tell you one very important thing. Never give up. We are all counting on you now, brother. Anonymous." Well, my response. I'll start with the end, I guess. Never give up. Well, I don't intend to. I may have occasional occasional periods where I'm unable to make a video as quickly or frequently, I guess is the word I was looking for, as frequently as I'd like to, but I'm always trying to think of something. I'm always trying to come up with whatever I'm going to do next. Always trying to come up with another way to get the word out a little bit more. And I actually have noticed over the last probably 2 weeks or so that there has actually been a little bit of an uptick in activity, especially on the Facebook page. I'm not entirely sure what's what's the credit for it, but I have a few suspicions on where some of that may have come from. But I am always trying to think of new ideas. I'd like to take credit for that last one, but I think I know where it's coming from, and I believe that it's a friend I've met through this, who's been doing some stuff in West Virginia. But that being said, also thank you very much to Anonymous 9001 for your support. I'll need a lot of support from a lot of people if this is going to get anywhere, but I guess moving on to the questions. What do you believe hackers should be allowed or disallowed from doing? Well, that is possibly the toughest question on here, because there's a lot of stuff that definitely is wrong, and there's a lot of stuff that definitely shouldn't be wrong, some of which actually is. But using examples from the actual history of Anonymous, one of their first actual hacking attacks that at least gained any attention was their conflicts with the Church of Scientology. And while I agree with Anonymous's position that the Church of Scientology is a little out there and kind of uses a lot of bully tactics, and they're not particularly the kind of organization that I would want to find myself involved with. I'll try and keep it polite, I guess, and I think that gets my point across without crossing into being rude. Hopefully that's a satisfactory statement. But what many members of Anonymous did in engaging in attacks against Scientology was they disrupted their site through what's called DDoS attacks, which is essentially continuously requesting information from their web server so ridiculously fast that it overloads their server and makes it unable to respond to anyone else. So if someone were legitimately actually trying to access that site because they wanted to know more about Scientology, they wouldn't be able to get anything because the site was too busy trying to send information to a computer that was just requesting it just for the sake of requesting it and taking up their bandwidth. These particular types of attacks on such websites, and even more acceptably on websites of those who are giving out either information or materials that are across the board unacceptable. Like I believe they also did attacks either later, I think later, on child pornography sites. They essentially did the same thing. They just did denial of service attacks on them. When you're doing stuff like that, I don't think that that's a problem at all, personally. Obviously, my personal opinion doesn't translate into what's okay to do based on law. I would still caution you to make sure you know what the law is, and if you want the law changed, make a good case for it, and I would, at least at a bare minimum, be open to hearing that case. Now, there is a particular category of denial of service attacks that I do think are not acceptable, and I believe members of Anonymous also engaged in these. In fact, I believe it was even against, I think it was Bank of America, it might have been Citibank, but regardless, they did denial of service attacks against a bank, and while I don't believe that that bank's site was shut down entirely because of them, it did significantly slow the service down. And that particular thing I don't think is acceptable, not necessarily because I agree with the banks, but because what you're doing isn't just affecting the bank, it's affecting the bank's customers. And I know that if I were a customer of that bank, and if I had a payment due on whatever date that one of these denial of service attacks was being done, if I was unable to access their site to make my payment online, which is how I personally do most of my pay most of my bills is online. At least, well, some bills I guess I pay online. Some of them I still pay by check. But if I was trying to pay a bill online through Bank of America or Citibank or whoever it was, and I had a bill due that particular day, and I couldn't get in to pay the bill, well, my failure to pay that bill on time, on the day that it was due, would be eventually met with a late charge. And so your denial of service attack on Bank of America or Citibank would have also resulted in punishing possibly hundreds or thousands or even tens or hundreds of thousands of their customers with late fees because of your hacking attack. So for that reason, I think it's not acceptable. Well, obviously there's a little bit more to it than just DDoS attacks, but I mean, there's plenty of other categories as well. There are instances I've heard of where anonymous anonymous hackers have obtained evidence for files or tracked down criminals by hacking, and I'm not entirely sure what they were doing, like what type of hacking this was, but if the category of hacking is already illegal, then I wouldn't condone doing something that's currently illegal in order to obtain that evidence. However, at the same time, any of this evidence that has been obtained, whether legally or illegally, I don't think that the evidence itself should be thrown out as evidence just because it was obtained illegally. However, if it was obtained illegally, the person who obtained it illegally should also, at least in most of these cases, be charged with whatever hacking it was. So if you are doing some hacking, you have to take into account, and especially for intelligence gathering, especially in support of defending someone else, especially if the stakes are high, like if someone's on trial for murder and you hack in somewhere and get, say, surveillance camera footage of something that proves that that person was not guilty. Well, if it were me and I knew how to hack, which I actually don't, if it were me and I knew how to hack, and I was able to hack in and get surveillance footage that proved that, well, we'll say my wife was not, in fact, guilty of a murder that she had been accused of, well, I would probably hack in there, even if that meant that I had to spend 5 years in prison for whatever hacking that was. Because my wife's life is worth more to me than 5 years in prison. It's a risk I'm willing to take. Do I risk spending 5 years in prison to save my wife from getting the death sentence or life in prison? Yeah, I do. That's a no-brainer for me. So it should be illegal, so that at least most of the hacking stuff should be illegal. What is illegal? Let me clarify that. Most of what is illegal should continue to be illegal. However, the punishment for most of it, especially in the event that it was obtained for defense of an accused, someone accused of a crime, the punishment should be fairly minimal, but just enough to deter people from doing that hacking for other reasons. Hopefully that makes sense, but there's just a little too much involved in hacking, and I'm not familiar enough with all of what's encompassed in hacking to know what I think that they should be allowed and disallowed from doing. I suppose I can cover a little bit more. Stealing personal information, I would definitely support keeping that illegal for hackers to do, especially if their intent is to use it for their own personal gain, either by extortion or by just identity theft. I guess I'll just move on, because I don't really know enough. I don't know enough about hacking or even hacking laws to be able to fully address that particular question. But I would definitely read over and think over anything that was proposed as far as making anything legal or illegal as far as hacking goes. I would have to think it over if it were presented to me, and I would definitely consult with people on both sides of the table just to make sure that whatever decision that I was making on that was the right one. But moving on. Do you agree with online piracy being an acceptable practice? This question is a lot easier for me because I've actually put a lot more thought into it ahead of time. Piracy, online piracy, is pretty much just defined as the currently unlawful downloading of copyrighted or patented materials. This would include music, movies, other videos, software that is not intended for free download, but to download it without paying. I would be lying if I said I had never once in my life done this. Back in fall of 1999 when I started college, Napster was actually a new thing, and I was so unfamiliar with piracy laws that I did it not even knowing that it was illegal. I'm pretty sure I downloaded more than 1,000 songs a long time ago. I have long since deleted the vast majority of them. What's left are either non-copyrightable in that they're unlicensed parodies, or I've actually purchased the song since then. Now, I'll go constitutional here and mention that the U.S. Constitution actually does cover that the government should make laws that protect patent and copyright for the people, for the protection and the growth of the arts and industries. If you wrote a song or a book or a computer program, or for I guess a more acceptable, relatable example, maybe not more relatable, but easier to explain example, let's say that you invented a device that every month you had to pour a 20-ounce bottle of water into it, and it produced enough electricity to power your house for the entire month. Small device, no bigger than a television, an old blocky television, it's only like maybe 18 inches or so. You developed this device. You've been working on it since you graduated high school. 30 years you've been working on this thing. Finally you've got it perfected, and you go on TV and you say, "Hey world, here's my invention, here's what it does. $1,000 a piece, you no longer have to be a slave to the electric company." Isn't that great? Well, chances are the American people would just absolutely love you. I know if you had made that invention and you had made it available for $1,000, I myself, I'd look up a few things online, see, I'd probably want to see some reviews on it before I actually bought it, make sure that it wasn't just some goofball claiming that he made something and turns out it only powers a light bulb or two. Well, so long as it checks out, I'd be signing up. I'd want one. Who wouldn't? I mean, essentially it's just like prepaying 4 or 5 months worth of your electricity and then never having to pay for it again. I guess it depends on where you live, maybe even as much as 10 months worth of your electricity, but regardless, even a whole year's worth of electricity, that's worth the money, right? Well, if you've built this device and you put it out there on the market and you sell, say, a dozen of them, and then some other company puts them out, same exact machine, I mean, it hardly even looks any different. Does the exact same thing, 20-ounce bottle of water, 1 month's worth of electricity. You're like, well, hey, I invented that. That's my machine. Why are they making it? Well, that's what patent rights are for. They protect you so that you have the right to make that machine. And if you don't want to make that machine, you just want to sell the rights to make that machine so that, Sears can make it, or General Motors can make it, whoever. I don't know who would actually be interested in manufacturing that machine, but whoever would be interested in manufacturing that machine, if you want to sell them the rights to do it and just take a lump sum, $1 million or $10 million or $100 million or whatever they're going to pay you for it, that's your right. If you want to say, here's my invention, as soon as I've sold 10,000, I'm going to release this so that everybody can make them, and then they're going to go way down in price so that everyone can probably afford them for less than a month's worth of regular electric bill. That's your right. If you want to release it right now and say, guess what, everybody, here's the plans. You want to make one yourself? It's pretty simple. Here's what you do. That's your right. But if you want to make money off of it, even if you want to make a ridiculous amount of money off of it, and even if it only costs you $30 worth of parts, you want to sell them for 10 grand, well, in all fairness, you're the one who put 30 years worth of work into that. It's not really extortion, because people still already have alternatives. It's not like they have to have your device unless you're going to get a law passed that says everyone has to own one. It's not like they have to have one, and I definitely would not advocate getting that law passed, because that's kind of what Obamacare did. Required people to buy something, which always makes the price go up. But without some sort of protection, legal protection in place to keep people from making it without your permission, you don't have the opportunity to make that money. And that's not really fair to you. The same goes for music, movies, and books, whatever else. If you don't want to give it away for free, you shouldn't be forced to. Now, on the same token though, the vast majority of piracy is of one of three things: music, movies, and software. I suppose video games is probably up there as well, but media, and software is to some degree considered media, but especially in the case of music and movies, I firmly believe that it actually was not in the best interests of the music, especially the music industry. It was not in their best interest to quite so aggressively go after this. I mean, that's almost entirely everything that I guess in my youth pirated, but oddly enough, of the small handful of movies that I downloaded, I think I actually own all of them on DVD or Blu-ray now. So, and the majority of which I owned on DVD or Blu-ray very shortly after downloading, because, well, let's face it, most of the time to download quality movies, especially considering for me to be in college, you have to go back more than 10 years. The picture quality was not that great back then, especially since some of them were even recorded in the theater, and, well, let's face it, video camcorder recording in a theater, not great quality stuff, especially when people's heads are in the way. But the majority, like, I actually learned about a lot of artists that I absolutely love now. In fact, I still listen to some of the artists that I discovered because of Napster and some of the other peer-to-peer sharing things back then. I own probably 30 or 40 at least more CDs now from artists that I never would have gotten into had it not been for that. Now, I'm not going to say that I bought every single album from every single song that I ever downloaded, even for the ones that were ever released on CD, because I like comedy stuff, and that's actually one of the areas that I really like is comedy music, and a lot of that has to do with song parodies, and there was a lot of song parodies, many of which embarrassingly horrible, that I downloaded, and many of those I deleted just about right away after listening to once, but some of them were very, very good. I still have several of those, but they're unlicensed parodies, which means that whoever it was that recorded that song parody never had the permission of the original artist. Therefore, it couldn't be used to make money anyways, so getting their permission to download it was... they didn't have any right to make money off of it anyways, so... There's there's not really any actual piracy involved there. But even ignoring those, I don't even know how many bands that I listen to now because of Napster, and I keep forgetting the other one. I don't remember what the next one was, but the college that I was going to shut down Napster. They shut down access to it probably about a month before Napster was shut down by the recording industry. But either way, I'll just, I guess, move on. Well, I suppose I should summarize that first. I don't think that online piracy is an acceptable practice, but I do think that that the recording industry, especially, should kind of open it up a little bit more for to allow people a little bit more freedom in that. And I think the subscription-based services charge you like $10-12 a month or something to download whatever you want. I think those are great. I've never actually used one, but that's because it didn't come out until after I didn't have access to high-speed internet anymore. But either way, I think it's in the best interest of the music industry especially to allow a little bit more freedom on that, but they shouldn't be forced to either. Moving on. Would you consider hacking a means of defending freedom, or defending oneself from, say, the government if it is acting tyrannical? Well, yes, I'd consider hacking a means of defending yourself. I suppose it depends on exactly what you're doing. There are certainly things that you could do that would be very hard to attribute to self-defense, I guess, in any way, shape, or form. There are some that I suppose you probably couldn't say are self-defense if the government is acting tyrannical, which they are to at least some degree. But again, the severity of the tyranny and the severity of the hacking, as the tyranny goes up, the severity of the hacking that can be used can go up. However, the tyranny should always be at a higher level than the hacking, which is I guess kind of hard to explain, but you never want to be as bad as the people that you're fighting. If you're fighting evil, you don't want to be as evil as they are. In fact, I don't believe that you can fight evil with evil, but that's not to say that hacking is evil, because I'm not saying that. What I am saying is make sure that what you are doing when you are hacking is not evil, because hacking can be evil. You can do evil, you can do wrongdoing to people by hacking. So just make sure you know where you're at. I think that's really all I need to say on that one. That I kind of stretched the last two a little long. So, how far should hackers be allowed to go before the act would be considered questionable? This one's kind of a hard question as well, because I am unfamiliar with all the details of hacking, but if it appears as if the hacker was after personal information, and especially if they were using that personal information for personal gain, then I would definitely call that bad behavior that should be illegal. If they're doing something that does or could cause financial or physical harm to other citizens of the United States, or really anyone in the world, but if they're doing something that could actually harm other people, I would consider that wrong. But it's kind of tied to the last question as well. If hacking goes too far, what should the maximum punishment be? Well, that again obviously depends on what exactly is being hacked and what exactly too far is, how far it went, and what the results were. There is at least one instance I can think of where hacking could result in someone being given the death penalty. And you might think that might be a little severe, but I don't think it is, given what I'm about to share. I'm not entirely sure how feasible this might be, but if it is feasible for someone to actually hack in and obtain nuclear launch ability, and someone were to actually launch a nuclear weapon and let's say they chose their target as Capitol Hill, which, if they're trying to fight the government, would be a logical target. I would personally never, in my entire life, ever condone that for two reasons. One, the people who are in the government, not every one of them, I don't believe is a bad person. Some of them they don't understand what they're doing, I guess. There are certainly some who know exactly what they're doing and probably deserve the fate that a nuclear attack would provide them, death. But that's not to say that some random hacker, or even non-random hacker, I don't know how you'd want to put it, but not to say that a hacker, just a random citizen of the United States, should have the authority to say that person deserves to die, and I am going to push the button just because no one else has. Well, second reason is because when you launch a nuclear weapon at a city or any location that's not obviously in a protected test area, there's going to be collateral damage. A lot of collateral damage. Businesses, and more importantly, people that are not even in government, people who are not in elected positions, in policy decision-making positions, advisors, janitorial staff in Capitol Hill, the White House, whatever. These people don't deserve to die. At least I'm sure the vast majority of them don't. There might be one or two that might for some reason, but that's not something that someone sitting at a computer, I think, should be able to decide. So if you think that it's up to you to go launch a nuclear warhead at Capitol Hill and kill everyone there, well, I think you deserve the death penalty. I think you should be caught, put on trial, and all that before you receive it, but I do think that action deserves the death penalty. And since it's a hacking thing, then yes, I can say the maximum punishment could be death, but it depends extremely heavily upon what exactly was being hacked. And hacking that directly results in the death of people, especially the intentional death of people, or the knowing death of people, you do something knowingly causing death, because you can't expect that a nuclear detonation wouldn't kill some innocent people. So even if you're only being held trial for the people that you thought were innocent, you'd still be deserving of the death penalty. But obviously not all hacking crimes are going to be that severe. Now, stealing personal information, for example, I suppose it depends on how far that went, what the effects were, but I'm thinking for anything that didn't involve personal injury or death, I don't think that anything higher than 10 years in prison should probably be given. This is stuff that, I don't know what all can result from hacking. I know a handful of stuff, so I can't really give an extremely detailed answer, because I've looked into some of the hacking stuff just to get a general idea of what can be done with hacking, but there's just so much involved and so many different ways to do it, so many different methods, different targets, different purposes, that I don't think I could possibly address them all in one video. So, and that would be an awful lot of research to look into, and it's not, I'm not saying that it's not important, I'm just saying that I have a lot of stuff that I'm already reading, a lot of things that I'm trying to work through, coming up with ideas on how to solve things. So this particular issue, even though I'm not saying it's unimportant, is not one that I have put enough priority into to possibly come up with quite the level of answers that Anonymous 9001 may have been hoping for. But The only thing that I can absolutely 100% promise is that any laws regarding hacking, and any laws in general, that are presented to me for my signature, I'm going to make sure that I'm absolutely comfortable with them. Make sure that I'm not signing into law something that's just out there to control the people. I am against control for the sake of control, or control for the sake of money, anytime that's the issue. And I think that there are a lot of laws out there that's their sole purpose, and I will not support those laws. So I will only support anti-hacking laws that are absolutely necessary to maintain order and protect people's ability to make money legitimately. Since a major part of the American dream is financial stability or financial success to some degree, or even wealth in many cases, that's what Americans want, is financial prosperity to varying degrees. There's not a whole lot of Americans who don't care about having money. Most people want stuff, and while I don't think that it's necessarily healthy to put too much emphasis on the stuff that you want, the non-religious certainly shouldn't be forced to not pursue the stuff that they want. Really, the religious shouldn't be forced not to pursue that either, but the religious should know that it's not really the greatest course of action for them, but it still should be a choice available. And if there's too many laws forcing people to not be able to pursue their happiness, that's a bad thing. So maximum punishment for denial of service attacks, especially if it's on a site that's not resulting in individual people not being able to pay bills or not being able to make transactions that they want just because somebody doesn't like Walmart's website, they DDoS attack it. I don't know if Walmart's site can handle it, but probably could. But if you're disrupting someone's business, that's the way you disrupt a business, is by putting out information. If you think that Walmart's bad because they sell Chinese goods, then you have the right to put that information out, but you don't have the right to say, oh, well, Walmart sells Chinese goods, that's taken away from American jobs, let's shut them down by, hacking into their site and making it so they can't sell anything. That's not the right way to go. That's disrupting business, and you're actually still affecting a lot of American jobs. Yes, a lot of the goods are made in China, but there are a lot of people who work for Walmart. Walmart's actually, I believe, the largest non-government employer in the United States right now, and while they may not have the highest wages at every location, there are a lot of people who depend on Walmart for their salary to pay, or to support their families. So disrupting them, or any other major employee, like even McDonald's, I think they pay even less, but disrupting them just because you don't agree with part or even all of their business practices, it's not really fair. It's not a good idea, and it affects more than just those at the top. In fact, it usually affects those at the bottom more than it affects those at the top. So not only do I think it's fine for it to be illegal, I think it's just wrong to engage in those attacks on some of these people, or on some of these businesses, because it's not just those at the top that you're affecting. But I guess that's really about all I got for a response here on that one. But I guess wrapping it up here, I did promise in the first video that every video I would make either a song or movie recommendation, and I imagine many of you probably thought that my first movie recommendation would probably be V for Vendetta, and to some degree you're right. However, that's not the one I'm recommending in this video. I've already recommended V for Vendetta probably at least 2 or 3 other times in some of the other videos before I started the What's on My Mind series, so I didn't really think it necessary to recommend that video again. So this time I decided to go with something a little more family friendly. The Lego Movie. I've heard a lot of people accuse it of just being a great big 90-minute whatever commercial for Legos, and I can't say that it doesn't make people want to play with Legos, but the movie is actually probably one of the most intelligent movies that I have ever seen. I mean, yes, it's toys walking around and talking. It's very comical, but there is a lot of political underlying themes here. In fact, it was, I believe, nominated as the most libertarian movie of 2014. And I can see why. And I agree with the majority of the things that they point out. I mean, the main character points out that the bad guy, who was the president of the Octane Corporation, he points out that the Octane Corporation makes like all kinds of cool stuff, like video games and all history books and voting machines, and then expresses sudden suspicion, like, wait a second, voting machines, they're made by the same guy that's always president. Weird. Well, you kind of have to get a little suspicious there as well. That's one thing I don't like about electric voting machines, especially considering this video here is being filmed just right about just short of a week before the 2016 midterm elections. So I have already heard stories about people who were able to access the machines early, which I'm not entirely sure. Before this year, I thought all early voting was done via mail-in ballots, but apparently that's not the case. Some people were using machines already. And I don't care that people are allowed to vote early so long as they're still only voting once. But the examples that I heard of were people attempting to vote Republican and their votes being counted Democrat. Now, I'm not saying one way or the other whether I agree with the Democrats or the Republicans, because there are issues I agree with one and there's issues I agree with the other, and there's issues, probably more issues than either of those categories, where I don't agree with either one. But regardless of which one of them I agree with, I don't think votes should be taken away from them because machines are programmed to take them away. But these voters, as they were getting ready to submit their votes, noticed that even though they had attempted to vote for a Republican candidate, their vote was being cast for a Democrat candidate. And that's not representation of the people if the machines are calibrated or programmed to vote for the wrong person. And you can say what you want, but these people said that they noticed it and attempted to change it, and every time they would tap on the, because they were touchscreen, every time they would tap on the Republican candidate's name or box, checkbox, whatever it was, it would still show up as counting for Democrat candidate. Obviously, that's some sort of a programming error, and considering what it is, I'd say it's almost entirely impossible that it's anything but an intentional programming error. So these kind of things are real occurrences. I'm hopefully not as frequent as what you might be afraid of, but I'm sure that they happen, and we all need to be on the lookout for that kind of stuff, but this movie kind of calls attention to that kind of stuff. It also amazingly addressed something where an ordinary citizen of the town of Bricksburg, which is the metropolis in the Lego Movie, an ordinary citizen becomes the hero of the movie because he is the only one who can defeat the thing. He's the only one who knows how to fix what's wrong. He becomes the hero. And I'm like, it's kind of what I'm trying to tell everybody. Ordinary people need to rise up and be the heroes. And that's exactly what they do at the end of the movie. The ordinary people have to rise up and be the heroes. But there's one other extremely important thing, that happens at the end of the movie. In fact, even after the ordinary people rise up. And this is something that I believe at least twice now, invited the existing politicians to do. To tell them they don't have to be the bad guy. It's never too late to change. You can fix this. Just because you've been the bad guy, just because you've instituted all these controls, it doesn't mean you have to keep doing it. Join us. Join the anonymous party. Or just embrace the ideals within it. You don't actually have to officially join the anonymous party, but at least embrace the ideals that we hold as our core. That freedom and choice are what makes this country great. Government transparency. These are the things that need to happen. Deregulation of almost every industry, as much as is possible without inciting chaos. We need less restrictions to promote competition in industry so that prices remain low, innovation remains high, and prosperity abounds. You can be a part of that, but you can't do it by embracing socialism. You can't do it by embracing control. You can't do it by legislating that people behave by religious moral values. They have to be allowed to live by them. They have to be allowed to teach them. They even have to be allowed to discuss them in public. But you can't legislate that they are the way things should be, but you can't legislate that they can't be either. Freedom. Freedom to choose. That's the only route that makes any sense at all. It's the only route that makes America the great nation that it once was. So, in closing, I'd like to again remind everyone that the power of the government is derived from its people, and that you are those people.